What was the worst decision you saw someone else make? When I was about 7 years old, I was in the car with my parents, going across the bridge from Niagara Falls, Ontario to Niagara Falls, New York. The deadly Niagara River is right below. There was quite a wait due to traffic, so we were pretty much stopped. A bunch of teenagers were goofing around, hopping out of their car and play fighting, etc. One guy hopped up on the railing of the bridge and did a handstand. It was terrifying. His friends yelled at him and he hopped down. Then he did it again and fell over the railing to his death. When I was in high school, I injured my knee and had 14 stitches across it from a deep gash. No crutches and I could hobble around, but no sudden movements. One of the things we would do at recess is play soccer on the field hockey ground. The goals were made of a heavy wood base, steel uprights and crossbars, no nets. I couldn't play at that time obviously, so I was standing watching and shooting the shit with some people. Every time we were there, 5 or 6 people would stand along the back frame of the hockey goals and rest their arms on the top steel crossbar. I guess they were like a makeshift net? Anyway, this day, everyone was standing along the back, when physics took over and the goals tipped over backwards. Everyone bailed except for one guy, who stumbled. The goals fell back and the steel crossbeam fell across his head. It fucking bounced. I was 6 feet away and couldn't do a damn thing. I couldn't lift it, I couldn't run for help, I had to stand there. Other people lifted the goals up, others ran for help. He was completely out, blood pouring from his nose, ears and one of his eyes. He fractured his skull right across both sides. He eventually pulled through and was more or less fine. Did quite well in his final exams. I went to see him in the hospital because I felt like shit. I couldn't help. 25 years later, I still think about it occasionally. I'm not upset, or feel guilty or anything, but seeing things like that stay with you. My family is from Buffalo, New York. My uncle visited the falls a few years back and saw a lady fall in. They had fenced off some parts that are normally accessible because of increased water flow or something like that. And the lady disregarded this, slipped, and fell in. The worst part though is that she actually managed to get up, out of the river, onto a bit of debris or a part of the water-covered path that was somehow accessible. I'm not sure, I wasn't there. She got there and stood up, and everyone watching called for her to stay where she was and wait for a rescue. She didn't listen, she fumbled around, tried to climb on the debris back to shore and slipped and fell back in. Her head was above water all the way to the edge of the falls, and my uncle and other onlookers saw her face, eyes wide open and terrified, right as she went over. She didn't make it. That will never leave him. A girl I know spent $50,000 on a wedding for a marriage that lasted 6 months. A friend signed with a professional sports organization at 18 for $1.2 million and spent 95% of it on junk without put any of it into an investment fund. I had a friend ask another friend to shoot him with a blow dart. First the guy shot him in the leg, but my friend thought that was too easy. He was an overly confident Marine Reserve, so he asked him to shoot him in the side. The guy didn't. It punctured his lung, though he wouldn't admit it. Then, trying to play it cool, he decided to go home, when really he was going to the hospital. We all followed him to his car trying to convince him to let one of us drive or call an ambulance, but he just kept saying nothing was wrong. He collapsed right as he unlocked his car and we had to call 911. He's fine, aside from his injured ego and dimwits. Saw someone else decide to cut off a bus as both were approaching a red light. I was on the bus. Driver said, "Hold on, this guy's a freaking idiot." We slammed into the truck slammed into the light post across the intersection. 010 would not experience again. Some idiot I used to know was convinced pepper in the eye wasn't nearly as painful as people made it sound. We just watched him pour pepper in his open eyes and laughed when the screaming began. Saw a rookie drinker at a house party mix Snapple with a half a glass of Everclear thinking Everclear was a simple alcohol mixer. 20 minutes later, projectile vomit everywhere. In a redeeming moment, a few hours later, he drunkenly got up from his sleep and decided to haphazardly mop the kitchen and went back to sleep. Friends sold their beautiful home for a huge loss because they were concerned about the way things were going with the local real estate market. Later that year, gentrification took root and their house was worth almost 3 times what they sold it for. A couple bought a property in a part of Montana that was having an influx of tourist money in nouveau riche. The wife wasn't happy, she wanted to live in Las Vegas, so she decorated the house in gaudy neon colors. After a few years, the wife got her wish. They put it on the market for $500,000, around what they originally paid. No takers, so they pulled it off the market. 2 years later, boom, 2008. Real estate is now completely in the crapper. The couple completely panics. They couldn't afford this place if they sold their grandmother's. They end up selling the house, 16 acres of land, with water source, and several outbuildings for $125,000 minus 25 cents on the dollar compared to the original price. Sold it, in fact, to a couple that had dreamt of owning the place for years. I don't know if the wife ever got to live all of her Las Vegas dreams, but I do know that my BFF and her husband are doing great on their 16-acre dream property. It took my BFF almost a full year to paint over all the damn neon colors, though. The moral of this story: never panic sell a property, especially if you have bad taste in decor. I witnessed my friend kick a skunk in order to get it away from him. Bad decision. I had a family of skunks that lived by my house for a long time. I moved, they're probably still there. They were always very friendly so long as you didn't get too close to the kids or act aggressively towards them. They never let me pet them or anything, but they were perfectly content to chill out on the lawn just a few feet away. I told that to an idiot cousin who was over one day, and she apparently interpreted that to mean that it was okay to try and pet one of the kids. It, didn't quite go according to plan. There was one incident in my hometown that made me want to tear my hair out. A family moved in a few years ago. They had 2 children, a boy and a girl. The mother was looking for work as a teacher, but there was no openings, so she worked as an aide. My mother was on the school board at the time, and she noticed that parents were complaining about the lady as she was apparently ignoring students and favoring others, getting angry when her children got bad grades from the other teachers, etc. Mom invited her to the next school board meeting to discuss the situation, and the lady went nuts. The conversation broke down into screaming, and the lady swore she would take Mom's spot on the board. Sure enough, when election sign-ups went up online, she was the only person who ran against Mom. After months of an attempted smear campaign, Mom won the election with more than 200 votes. The lady only got 5, all from her extended family. So what does the lady do? She decides to pull both of her children out of public school as she doesn't want them corrupted by the teachers and the board. The son was a senior in high school, months away from graduation, and the daughter was in middle school. My sister was in her class, and she said the daughter screamed and kicked her mom as she dragged her out of the classroom to check her out, begging her not to do it. She left all of her stuff in her locker, and the school had to send it to them. When Mom heard the news, she was horrified and tried to talk to the family, but the father had been browbeaten by his wife and refused to put the kids back in public. It's been a couple of years since then. The mom homeschooled the kids, but the son works in the oil field and is trying to get his GED. The daughter is a complete rebel and has been arrested numerous times for drunk driving and vandalism. But the mom still has the audacity to act smug whenever someone runs into her at the grocery store. At least my children know how to live in the real world. Sure, Kathy, keep telling yourself that when you have to bail your kid out from jail. Edit: I know Reddit is pretty passionate about children, but wow, this blew up on me. For the record, yes, her name is actually Kathy. I believe she pulled them out as a way to get back at my mom, as she was her enemy since she didn't get a teaching job or her spot on the board, so she blamed her for everything. Mom didn't hate her in the slightest, but was very upset that she did this to her kids, who didn't do anything wrong. Both kids were under 18, so the son couldn't just go back on his own. Was in Yosemite doing a hike up to the top of, I think, Vernal Falls. Some kid from a large church group decided to swim at the top in the, seemingly but not really, calm water at the top. I saw him get swept away and taken over the edge. The water has been running over there for thousands of years, so the rocks are smooth and there's no vegetation. There's literally nothing to grab a hold of if it happened to you. Was not in the mood to see a kid die that day. Read the signs and please stay the hell out of the water like you're told. Edit for even more grim details: the body wasn't found that day. Or the next. Or the next. I spoke to a ranger and he said that sometimes they don't get to retrieve the body until the summer, when the falls have dried up. This is because often the bodies get stuck in a current and thrown around in one area at the bottom like they're in a washing machine. It's impossible to get to or even see them. I have no idea what's left of them after months of that. So, stay well clear. My friend on why he proposed to his controlling, angry girlfriend of 5 miserable years. I did it so she would stop asking. Wedding is in 3 months. At trivia night at a TGI Fridays, one of the questions was, which band originally wrote and sang While My Guitar Gently Weeps? I said it was the Beatles, but a friend said that it was Prince. Cue a bunch of people saying, wait. You know, I think you're right. Yeah, he had that awesome live solo a few years ago. I insisted it was the Beatles, so we put it to a vote. I lost the vote. And we lost that point. Frick you, Gavin, frick you, team. Outside a bar, The bouncers offer to pay for a cab. Guy says no, calls his girlfriend, she won't pick him up because of the baby. He says he won't drive, walks off, gets in his car, does 80 miles per hour down a side road and gets busted for DUI. Offered a free cab ride home, effed up his life, could have killed someone. A dude I used to work with had put an engagement ring on layaway for his girlfriend. He was excited to ask her but used layaway to make sure he would have time to make the proposal perfect. His girlfriend got hired at the same job, she snooped and found the ring and cancelled the layaway saying that he has horrible taste and how could he think she would wear something so hideous. It was a 3/4 carat solitaire. Once he got to work, she made him put a 1.5 carat solitaire on layaway and she berated him for the remainder of the day and for the 5 months leading up to him proposing. He cried at work, multiple times, and she bragged about making him cry all the time. His parents were staunchly against him marrying her, especially after she announced at a family get-together that she would leave him if he didn't find a 6-figure salary out of college. They got married anyway. Edit: for those of you wondering, last I heard from a coworker is that they moved closer to his family so he could work for his dad. She used to talk about his parents like they were dirt beneath her heel, so I'm sure it's going about as well as one can imagine. She was a terrible person. Her stepdad had a lot of money, so she had become accustomed to the lifestyle, which she was no longer living in. We all told him at work she was wrong for him, but he made several excuses for her. She talked non-stop about this one-of-a-kind $80,000 dress she was going to buy to get married in. I laughed in her face when she told me. My husband proposed with a $200 ring after he and I discussed for months the idea of marriage. The ring was beautiful and I loved it. He surprised me on our 2-year wedding anniversary with a slightly larger, gold-banded, ring similar to the original. Our wedding only cost $2,500. She scoffed when I told her. She is probably my least favorite person I've ever met, and I've met a lot of crappy people. That's it for today, guys. What did you think of that video? Have you ever seen any of your friends make any mistakes? If you have, let me know down in the comments section. Please subscribe to my channel if you've loved the video. Like and share the video and support my channel. Alright, it's time for daily space facts. NASA's Crater Observation and Sensing Satellite, LCROSS, found evidence of water on the Earth's moon.